head on over to chat.learndevops.com.au. You'll be forward to Discord. I really hope that we get to connect soon. Enjoy the stream. One question that I've seen on Reddit one question that I saw on Reddit recently was, am I earning enough? So let's get that question. Okay, so we had this question here on Reddit: is salary, I have 1,900 euros per month after taxes. Am I getting ripped off? So the person who originally posted it here has obviously deleted it. I think the reason they deleted that was because the problem they had is that they've posted this with their real name. And I remember someone in the comments was saying, I wouldn't have posted this with my real name. Fair enough. Okay. So, but I want to answer it. I want to answer it myself directly as someone who's obviously a professional in the industry. So my immediate thoughts are 1,900 euros per month. That depends on where you live. If I remember this post correctly, they're in Germany. I think they're in West Germany, I think. So I don't know anything. I've never lived in West Germany, so I don't know how expensive West Germany is. 1,900 euros per month. Let's have a look what that would be. Euro to AUD. Let's have a look. So 3,069 euro Australian dollars per month. That would not work in Brisbane at all. So $3,069 Australian per month in Brisbane would not cut it. So straight away I would say yes. So I would say straight away there's something wrong there with the compensation that this person's receiving, and so there is definitely work to be done here in order to improve this. But again, 3,000 Australian dollars in Germany might be a lot per month. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to go over my first pay rise. So when I worked at UK Fast, this was around 2010, 2011, what I did was I asked for a pay rise because one day I noticed people coming into the office and they were getting offered more. I heard rumors that they were being offered more. I was on £21,000 per year at that point in time, which was an okay wage for where I lived in England, a relatively cheap area of England. And they were coming in on 23, and some of them were more junior than me, and they hadn't been at the company as long as I had. So that's obviously an issue straight away. So I went and spoke to my team leader about this, and I eventually got a pay rise from 21,000 to 23,000 in order to match, and I got a little bit of back pay as well. So what triggered the desire to get that raise? Well, that's obviously unfair compensation if other people are coming into the organization and they're earning more than I am straight off the bat, and they've just started the organization, they're more junior. So that's triggered that desire for a raise straight away. I approached my team leader and just had a frank conversation with them, and they confirmed that there is this concept of people coming into the organization who are earning more than you straight off the bat. And the conversation was actually fairly simple. Just approaching my team leader was easy. It was a casual conversation. It was over relatively quickly. They went to more senior management, and it didn't take long before it was accepted that was an unfair practice, and people were compensated as a result. So that was easy enough. And now what I want to do is I want to go over my pay progression, if I can actually speak, essentially over the years. So what did my pay look like from pretty much my first job in IT, my proper first full-time job in IT, through to today as a contractor in Brisbane, Australia. So setting the context straight away, north of England is a relatively cheap place to live. It's very social economically. Basically, it's not as wealthy as the south. Let's just put it that way. And so living expenses are much lower. So therefore, high wage goes much further in the north of England. So I started off my first job in the north of England, and I was on £15,000 per year. I actually took a pay cut to get that. I went from £16,500 working at a call center to £15,000 in order to take on that position. But it was my foot in the door straight away, and so it was basically. It was a no-brainer because I knew that my wage would go up from there onwards. I'd work on it and get my wage higher. I then moved on from there after about a year to the job that I actually just mentioned, which was UK Fast, and I immediately jumped from 15,000 to 21,000. So straight away a £6,000 pay rise is great. I've already gone past that 16.5 straight up to 21,000. Then I got that internal pay rise to 23 after about 6-7 months, once I found out that these people were joining the organization and they were being paid more despite being more junior. And I was at UK Fast for about 13 to 14 months before I then moved to Rackspace. So I went down south. I went to live in near London. Rackspace, just sort of inside the M25, so they're sort of in London, but sort of greater London. And I jumped to £36,000. So again, what's that? £13,000 pay rise straight off the bat. Now it's a more expensive area to live in, so that's obviously something to keep in mind. But that being said, I wasn't in central London and I wasn't living in central London, so it was still a significant pay rise. I was at Rackspace for about 1.5 years before I then moved over to a much more localized company building a private cloud environment called Skyscape. They're now called UK Cloud. And I jumped from 36 to 45,000 there. So immediately we see a $9,000 pay rise, £9,000 pay rise straight away. And that actually reduced my commute and everything else. Was the living costs were the same because I was living in the same area going to Rackspace, but now I was just going around a corner, but my pay went up quite significantly. Then I met my now wife in Europe, and I decided to move to Australia. So before I did that, I thought I'm going to set up a company and I'm going to start contracting and I'm going to do a big money grab. So I actually jumped to £550 per day. Right, so if we look at that and we do 550 times 5, Google will do the math for us. So essentially, it's £2,750 per week, per business week. If we then take that and we assume a standard working month, that's £11,000 per month, and then if we assume I believe I did that for about 7 months before I moved to Australia. So immediately my wage has essentially jumped to £77,000 pretty much immediately. So contracting does attract a much higher rate because there's risks that you can't find work. That's not a concept in London. If you're in London and you're watching the stream, well, first of all, welcome. It's 3 o'clock in the morning for you. You should probably go to bed. But if you're watching it, that is a lot of money for London. And you'll never not be in work in IT in London. So I'm just going to say, put that out there. There's no risk with contracting at all. There's plenty of work. It's pretty much the same here in Brisbane as well. Anyway, I then moved to Australia and my wife asked that I took a full-time job for immigration purposes. So I then joined a company here and I was on 110,000 Australian dollars plus 10% pension as well. So let's do 110 1, 2, 3, AUD to USD, just as a reference for the viewers. So it's $80,000 per year. So $80,000. Let's actually do the maths on that as well. So let's actually convert that over to so USD to British pounds. So 58,000. So even though I've dropped from the contractor rate, I've entered Australia at 58,000, which is more than the 45 I was earning at Rackspace. Then I moved on to another company about a year. That was actually that was a 12-month period, and I moved on to another company and I went to 120,000 Australian dollars plus 10% pension. I won't do the maths; it's roughly the same. Obviously, an extra $10,000. And then I went contract. Then I set up my company again and I went contract, and I currently earn 1,100 AUD to USD, $1,100 per day, so $803 USD per day, or $4,015 US dollars per week. So over a sort of standard 4-week, it's about $16,060 in a given month, and then I work roughly about 10 months of the year. So you're looking at around 160,000 US dollar per year, and I get a lot of flexibility. I move around a lot and I learn loads. I meet lots of people. It's great. It's awesome. There's a pattern here, isn't there? I moved a lot. Now, I'm not going to lie to you in any way. I'll always be as transparent as I can. Some of those jobs I moved from because they were bad jobs. I didn't get on with people. I didn't get on with them. They didn't get on with me, or I was just bad at that job. There were a few of those cases there. I'm not going to lie to you. However, that's going to bring me on to a topic in just a moment around should you move jobs in order to essentially get a pay rise. Yeah, that's actually what it boils down to. So I moved a lot, and every time I moved, my wage went up. Okay, so that's my pay progression through the years. So I can earn anywhere today around 900 to 1100 Australian dollars per day here in Brisbane, Australia. Populated about 2.3 million. Sydney is much bigger, higher rates, much bigger city. Melbourne again has a much bigger population. These rates are probably below what you could probably get in San Francisco, maybe New York and big cities like that. So especially London as well. So have a look at your local city. Look at the rates online on your job board for daily rates and daily wages, and make sure that your current compensation sort of matches. Okay, let's cover something quite quickly. Talking about your wage with colleagues. You should talk to your colleagues about your wage. If you don't talk to your colleagues about your wage, you'll be on £21,000 a year working at UK Fast, and there will be people coming in more junior than you who haven't been at the company before earning £23,000 a year if you don't speak to people. If you don't speak to your colleagues about your wages, you're going to see what I quite frankly term as a businessman, abusive business practices. It is abusive. If you are hiring someone and you're paying them $100,000 per year, and then you hire someone else at 120 and you don't increase that other person's wage, you know right well that you're taking advantage of that other person. It is essentially it's an abusive business practice, in my opinion. There's also something really, really important, and I try and avoid politics, but this is important. Being transparent means that everyone is being fairly paid, or can at least arrange for pay, i.e., what if the person beside you is being paid less for the exact same work because of gender, race, or religion? Is that fair? Of course it's not fair. Of course it's not fair. We have topics at the moment going on regarding the gender pay gap between men and women. That shouldn't be a thing. We shouldn't even have to have that conversation. So I'm going to move on from that, but that's my view on that. Don't stay silent, and don't let your organization silence you with a contractual clause. I find it extremely hard to believe that a contractual clause can stop you from talking about your wages, and even if it can, just do it anonymously online. But my advice is just speak to your colleagues and make sure that everyone around you is being paid fairly. Okay. So I guess the answer, the main question that a lot of people actually end up asking is, should I actually get a new job? Should I go and get a new job? So you've maybe discovered that you're being underpaid. You discovered that other people are being paid more than you. Or you just think that your wage is bad. Should I just go, well, I'm just going to get a new job then? I think the answer to this, personally myself, is no. I don't think you should just go out and immediately just go, I'm going to get a new job. I would ask the following questions of yourself. Are you happy in the current organization? Are the problems interesting? Is the tech stack interesting? What's the culture like? Are the people you work with amazing? If you've got a yes to a large enough majority of those questions, then you've got to stop for a second, and you've got to think, if I move to another company, what's the culture going to be like? What are the problems going to be like? What's the tech going to be like? As a contractor, I interview a lot. And I tell you now, I have to ask a lot of questions to really drill down and discover what the tech stack looks like. Sometimes I can make assumptions based on the industry, banking, medical, education, government, private sector, startup, etc. You can make some assumptions. Startups are going to be very sort of on the edge. They're going to be using a lot of very modern technologies, whereas large enterprises in banking, in governments, etc., they tend to be sort of behind that edge more significantly. A lot of constraints on them. So you got to look at that job you're looking at that company and go, well, what culture and tech stack and problem domain am I potentially moving into? And am I going to be worse off? I'll have more money, but I guarantee you more money does not equal happiness. It really, really doesn't. A good team solving good problems that are personal preference, moral and ethical, ideally, and with a good tech stack and good people around you, can actually compensate quite heavily for a lack of wage. It really, really can. So I would say, are you happy? Are the problems interesting? Is the tech stack interesting? And what's the culture like? If you're looking at that and you're going, it's all just meh, like I don't really care about any of that, to be honest with you. Or I'm just doing a money grab, or I only care about the money, well, then you can start looking at getting another job. So the best way to look at that then is, how confrontational or confident are you? I'm quite a confident person. I think that's very clear, the fact that I'm putting myself out here in the public with my opinions. I invite criticism. That's how I get better. But are you comfortable doing that? Are you comfortable asking for a raise? Is your team leader or your leader approachable? Are they an approachable person? Another thing to consider as well is, does the company that you work for have a history of pay rises? Speak to other people around you. Again, speak to other people around you. Communication, it's critical. If you hear rumors around you that people are getting pay rises, then you've got to ask yourself the question, well, this is clearly a company that does pay rises, so can I get a pay rise? Have I earned that yet? Some companies have a lot of structure in place around pay rises. I've worked at companies and in government departments where you're given a literal rank, like not like a military rank, but you're given a grade, like you're an A1 or an A2 or an A3 or an A4, and you meet certain criteria and you move up a rank, and with that rank comes a wage. There's a negative side to that. There's a positive in that you know right well how you get a pay rise. You meet that criteria, you go up a step. You go up the pay rank. Easy. However, there's a negative there in that the pay rank and the wages, the salaries attached to that rank might not necessarily be industry and market aligned with the market. That's when you go back to, well, okay, but do I have a great culture? Am I working on interesting problems? So on and so forth. You might work on pretty good tech that's fairly modern for a charity, saving kittens and puppies from certain doom, right? Most people are going to be like, that's pretty cool, I get to do that. So do I really need an extra $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year? It would be nice to have more money. Money enables things, but are these things important to me as well? So you got to ask yourself, what does everything else around me? It's not just about the money. What does everything else around me look like? I'd also say, what does the market around you look like? If you're in a small country town, somewhere in the middle of America or something, or in a sort of rural area of like Canada or South America or something, and you've got an IT job, is there really that much opportunity? Can you move to another state? If you're in the middle of New York, San Francisco, London, Brisbane, Sydney, Berlin, Paris, there's probably going to be a lot of opportunity around you. You're probably going to have an extremely healthy economy around you, especially given our sort of need and addiction to technology as a species. We're using computers to do run a lot more of us now. So the more people are all around you, the more problems there are to solve, the more IT is going to be necessary, so the more jobs there's going to be. Should I get a new job? Depends on the company you're working for, depends on whether you're confident in asking for a pay rise and whether your company has a culture of giving out pay rises, and it also depends on the market around you, because you're either going to need an offer to leverage a pay rise. You're going to need something to go in and say, I have this offer, it's way above what you're offering, and I'm confident that it's going to be a great place to work. Match, or I'm off, or that's just not an option for you. If you don't have that, then that makes it much more harder to negotiate a pay rise. One final point, and this is a warning: get another job before you quit. Unless you're financially independent, extremely good with money, have a huge savings account, my personal opinion is that you have at least 6 months worth of 6 months of actual monthly outgoings in full saved at any one time, so that if you do lose your job due to economic reasons or health reasons, you've got that huge safety net. Unless you have something like that and you're very comfortable with money, make sure that before you hand in your notice and say, I've found another job with a better culture, better people, better tech stack, and more money, make sure you've actually got that offer. Make sure you've got the offer. Make sure you've signed it. Make sure they've signed it. Make sure it's legally binding. Make sure it's an actual contract. Everything's set up. It's arranged. You've got a start date. You're off you go before you hand in your notice. Just protect yourself. Just make sure that you're not going to very emotionally or psychologically or financially impact your life and the people around you, children, friends, family, wife, husband, whatever it might be, by acting emotionally. Oh, I hate this place. I can go earn more money somewhere else. I'm going to quit. Well, whoa, hang on a minute. Go and get the contract that says you're going to earn more money before you quit. Hopefully that's helpful. This is something that's come up a lot, and hopefully that's a good answer. Very nice.